An ancient computer predates our modern era by 2,000 years. This is the world of unsolved archaeological puzzles, where the past holds secrets that modern science cannot yet unlock. By the end of our journey, you will understand 20 of history's most baffling enigmas and why they force us to rethink everything. How did a 15th century manuscript become written in a language no one can read? Why would a culture build immense designs only visible from the sky? These are not just curiosities, they are frontiers. Each mystery represents a gap in our story, a challenge to the linear tale of human progress. They remind us that history is not a settled record but a living, breathing puzzle. What does it say about us that our ancestors' greatest achievements often leave us with the deepest questions? The true weight of a historical mystery often lies not in its age, but in its strangeness. A simple, weathered pot from 1,000 years ago is a fascinating artifact. But a pot that appears to be made from a material science cannot identify. That is something else entirely. This is the core of our most perplexing archaeological puzzles, the element that transforms a curious find into a genuine enigma. It is the presence of the anachronistic, the feature that seems impossibly out of place for its time. Think of it as finding a single, perfectly crafted stainless steel component in the ruins of a medieval blacksmith's forge. The object itself is clear, its function might even be obvious, but its very existence contradicts the established narrative of what was possible. In archaeology, these anachronisms take many forms. They might be a level of engineering precision that should not have been achievable for another millennium, like the seamless joints of stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons. They could be symbols carved into a wall that bear no resemblance to any known writing system from that region or era, a silent message we can see but cannot read. Sometimes it is the material itself, a metal alloy or a type of glass whose recipe has been lost to time, or perhaps was only invented once. The scientific process approaches these finds with a toolkit of rigorous methods. Researchers use techniques like radiocarbon dating to pinpoint an object's age, or comparative analysis to see if similar artifacts exist elsewhere. Yet, the most stubborn mysteries are those where all the data points to a clear reality, but that reality does not fit into our understanding of history. The evidence is solid, but the context is missing. This is where archaeology moves from mere discovery into profound questioning. It forces experts to confront the limits of current paradigms, to admit that the tidy, linear story of human progress from primitive to advanced might have unexpected loops, branches, and forgotten chapters. These puzzles persist precisely because they live in that challenging space between hard physical evidence and the interpretation of history. A single anomalous data point can be dismissed as an error. But a collection of them from different corners of the ancient world begins to form a different picture. It suggests that flashes of knowledge, of sophisticated technique or profound insight may have appeared, been utilized, and then vanished from the common record, waiting to be stumbled upon by a later civilization that views them as impossible. Understanding this framework is essential because it shifts our perspective. We are not just looking at a list of odd old things. We are peering through keyholes into lost worlds, each puzzle a testament to the boundless and often mysterious ingenuity of the human mind across the ages. With that lens in place, the depth of what follows becomes truly apparent. The first puzzle emerges not from a desert tomb or a lost city, but from the silent depths of the Aegean Sea. In the year 1900, sponge divers working near the island of Antikythera stumbled upon the wreck of a Roman-era cargo ship. Among statues and ceramics, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood, so encrusted and fragile it seemed like little more than sea-worn debris. Decades later, careful cleaning revealed something astonishing. This was not a simple ornament. It was a machine, now known as the Antikythera Mechanism. This device, crafted around 100 years before the Common Era, represents a leap in understanding so vast it feels anachronistic. Imagine a clockwork universe built 2 millennia before the mechanical clock became common. The mechanism is a complex assembly of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, housed in a wooden case roughly the size of a large shoebox. Inscriptions on its faces served as a user manual detailing its functions and what functions they were. By turning a hand crank, the operator could calculate the positions of the sun and moon, predict lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the cycles of ancient athletic games like the Olympics. It modeled the irregular motion of the moon with a sophisticated gear that accounted for its elliptical orbit, a mathematical understanding not thought to have been applied mechanically until the Renaissance. The precision of its predictions was not matched again in Europe for over 1,000 years. This single artifact forces a monumental question. How did Hellenistic engineers, without the industrial tools we associate with such fine mechanics, achieve this? And more perplexingly, why is it alone? If such technology existed, where are the other examples, the simpler models, the mentions in contemporary texts? The historical record from that vibrant period of Greek science is largely silent on machines of this complexity. Some scholars propose it was a unique masterpiece from a brilliant workshop in Rhodes, perhaps inspired by the legendary inventor Archimedes, a kind of philosophical demonstration of cosmic order. Others argue it cannot be an isolated fluke. It points instead to a lost tradition of high craftsmanship and astronomical gearwork, a thread of technical knowledge that was snapped, its secrets sinking with ships and scattering in the fires of libraries. The Antikythera Mechanism does more than predict celestial events. It predicts a profound shift in our historical perspective. Its very existence whispers that the timeline of human innovation is not a smooth, upward slope. It can have sharp, isolated peaks that vanish into the fog of time, leaving behind only a single, corroded clue to remind us how much we have yet to learn about our own past. While the Antikythera Mechanism speaks a language of mathematics and gears, our next puzzle presents a script that refuses to speak at all. In the rare book library of Yale University rests a small volume that has defied understanding for centuries. Known as the Voynich Manuscript, it was created in the 15th century, a time when European scribes were meticulously copying texts in familiar Latin and Italian. This book is nothing like those. Its approximately 240 vellum pages are filled from edge to edge with graceful, looping characters from an alphabet no scholar has ever seen. The text flows in a seemingly grammatical structure with distinct words and repeated phrases, suggesting a real language with rules and rhythm. But to every codebreaker and linguist who has ever examined it, that rhythm is silent. Accompanying the script are illustrations that deepen the mystery rather than solve it. There are pages upon pages of delicate, full-color drawings of plants. Yet these are not the herbs and flowers of any known botanical manual. They are fantastical creations with leaves, roots, and blossoms that seem almost familiar but belong to no species on Earth. Other sections feature intricate astrological diagrams with zodiac-like symbols arranged in concentric circles, and strange charts that look like maps of unknown islands. One particularly puzzling series shows what appear to be small, unclothed human figures, mostly female, immersed in or connected by a network of tubes and vessels, suggesting some lost study of biology or a symbolic process. For decades, the world's top cryptographers, including those who broke enemy codes during major global conflicts, have applied their skills to the Voynich. In recent years, sophisticated artificial intelligence has been trained on its patterns, searching for a hidden key. The results are always the same. The text possesses a statistical structure consistent with a natural language, not random gibberish. but it does not match any known linguistic family. This leads to a haunting trio of possibilities. First, that it is an incredibly elaborate and pointless hoax, crafted with a consistency that fools even modern computers, a notion that seems both absurd and exhausting. Second, that it records a genuine but completely lost natural language, perhaps from an isolated community whose knowledge and speech vanished without a trace. Or third, that it is a sophisticated cipher so clever that its key has been lost to time, locking away its true content. The most compelling aspect of the Voynich Manuscript is the feeling it evokes. Holding it, one does not feel they are looking at nonsense. The care in its illustration, the flow of its script, the sheer effort of its creation all suggest it was meant to convey something important. It feels like knowledge, real, specific knowledge about plants, the stars, and perhaps the human body, filtered through a perspective so alien to our own that we cannot even begin to parse its labels. It stands as a stark reminder that writing, our primary tool for preserving thought across time, is only a bridge if both ends understand the code. Here, one end has crumbled away, leaving us with a beautiful, silent, and profoundly lonely message from the past. From silent manuscripts, we move to a landscape speaking in a language of pure geometry. Deep in the tropical lowlands of Costa Rica, amidst banana plantations and river deltas, lie artifacts of such simple perfection they seem to defy their own creation. These are the stone spheres of the Diquis, hundreds of them, ranging from the size of a bowling ball to colossal orbs over 2 meters in diameter and weighing up to 16 tons. Carved from a hard igneous rock called granoderite, their smooth, near-perfect spherical shape is the core of the mystery. They were crafted by a sophisticated pre-Columbian society, a culture that flourished for centuries but then faded from the region, its people assimilating or moving on long before European contact. With them vanished any oral tradition or written record that could explain the sphere's true purpose. The how of their creation is a feat of persistent skill. Researchers believe the makers likely used a combination of techniques, first hammering the raw stone with other hard rocks to rough out a shape, then patiently grinding and polishing it with sand and water over what must have been generations for the largest examples. The real puzzle, however, is the why. Why would a society invest such immense communal effort into creating these objects? The spheres are not found in quarries. They were moved somehow across difficult terrain and placed in specific arrangements, often in groups near the dwellings of the elite or in alignments across the landscape. This deliberate placement fuels the theories. Some researchers propose they were astronomical markers, their positions indicating solstices or equinoxes, turning the land itself into a cosmic calendar. Others see them as symbols of power and status, the ancient equivalent of displaying immense wealth and authority through permanent, immovable art. Another compelling idea is that they held deep religious or ceremonial significance, perhaps representing celestial bodies like the sun or moon, or serving as markers for sacred pathways between the worlds of the living and the ancestors. The debate continues because each theory fits some of the evidence, but none fits all of it perfectly. The astronomical alignments are tantalizing but not conclusively proven for every group. Their function as status symbols makes sense, yet does not fully explain the precision of their form or the energy required to position them. This is the profound silence left by a vanished culture. We can measure the spheres, map their locations, and admire the astonishing craftsmanship, but the meaning behind that craftsmanship, the beliefs that drove entire communities to shape the very earth into perfect forms, remains locked within those silent stones. They are a monument not just to skill, but to the ultimate fragility of human memory, reminding us that a civilization's most enduring legacy can sometimes be its most inscrutable. The silent geometry of Costa Rica finds its echo in the vast, open-air gallery of a Peruvian desert. Here, the canvas is not stone, but the very earth, and the artists worked on a scale that seems to defy human perception. Across approximately 450 square kilometers of the Nazca Desert, a series of immense lines and figures have been etched into the dark, rocky surface. These are the Nazca Lines, and they transform the arid plateau into one of the world's most breathtaking and puzzling artworks. Created by the Nazca culture over a 1,000-year period beginning around 500 years before the Common Era, the geoglyphs range from perfectly straight lines that run for kilometers to intricate depictions of animals, plants, and geometric shapes. There is a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider, a monkey with a spiraling tail, and a colossal humanoid figure often called the astronaut. The precision is staggering, with the outlines remaining crisp and clear for centuries in the rainless climate. Yet this clarity reveals the central paradox. The full beauty and form of these designs are only comprehensible from a vantage point high above the desert floor, a perspective the Nazca people themselves could never have physically achieved. This simple fact ignites the enduring mystery. Why would a society invest generations of labor to create monumental art they could never see? The construction itself, while labor-intensive, is technically understandable. The dark surface layer of iron oxide-coated pebbles was removed to reveal the lighter-colored sand beneath, creating a contrast that lasts. The real puzzle is one of intent and meaning. One prominent theory suggests the lines served as sacred pathways for ritual processions. Individuals or groups might have walked along the giant outlines during ceremonies, physically tracing the form of a condor or a spider as an act of worship or connection to the spirit it represented. Another line of thought points to the sky, proposing the geoglyphs functioned as an astronomical calendar. Certain lines may have aligned with the rising or setting of the sun, moon, or significant stars on key dates, marking solstices and guiding agricultural cycles. A more symbolic interpretation views the entire desert plateau as a vast ceremonial space, a means of communicating with deities believed to reside in the mountains or the heavens. The figures could be offerings or prayers made visible to the gods above. Perhaps the most profound implication of the Nazca Lines is what they reveal about a different way of seeing the world. For the Nazca, the landscape was not just a place to live. It was an active participant in their cosmology, a living canvas upon which they could inscribe their beliefs, their identity, and their pleas to the forces of nature. The inability to see the complete work from the ground was not a flaw in the plan, it was irrelevant to the plan. The audience was not human. This shifts the mystery from a technical how to a philosophical why, forcing us to consider a worldview where the divine gaze was more important than the human one, and where altering the earth itself was the ultimate form of devotion and dialogue with the unseen. The desire to communicate with forces beyond our sight takes another form entirely in our next enigma, one written not for gods but for future finders, on a material meant to endure the ages. Among the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of ancient Jewish texts discovered in caves near the Qumran settlement, one stands starkly apart. While the others are inscribed on fragile parchment or papyrus, this document is etched onto thin sheets of copper. Dated to the 1st century of the Common Era, it is known simply as the Copper Scroll, and its contents read not as sacred scripture or community law, but as a straightforward, tantalizing inventory. It lists 64 locations, and at each site it describes a hidden deposit of treasure. The quantities are staggering, mentioning many thousands of talents of silver and gold, along with precious vessels and aromatics. The described hiding places are specific, referencing landmarks, pools, and structures in and around Jerusalem, such as the tomb of a certain priest or a conduit leading to a particular pool. It reads, in essence, like a literal treasure map from antiquity. This practical purpose is underscored by its very medium. Copper was costly and difficult to inscribe, but it does not decay like organic materials. Whoever created this scroll intended for its information to survive physically for a very long time. This fact fuels the central, burning question. Is the copper scroll a genuine record of hidden wealth, or is it something else entirely? One compelling theory holds that it is a factual inventory of treasures from the Second Temple in Jerusalem, systematically hidden away by priests or community leaders in the years leading up to the catastrophic Roman siege and destruction of the city in the year 70. The locations, described in a kind of coded shorthand, would have been clear to those who buried the hoards but are frustratingly vague to modern seekers. Another line of thought suggests the list is allegorical. It's described treasures representing spiritual wealth or religious knowledge rather than physical bullion. A more skeptical view proposes it could be a later fabrication, a piece of historical fiction or legend committed to a durable metal to lend it an air of authenticity. For decades, archaeologists and adventurous souls have used the scroll's clues to mount searches. They have dug at likely spots, scanned areas with ground-penetrating radar, and followed every geographical hint. The result consistently has been nothing. Not a single talent of silver, not one golden vessel from the scroll's detailed list has ever been recovered. This complete absence of physical evidence is what perpetuates the mystery. It creates a fascinating tension between the scroll's convincing, durable form and the elusive nature of its promise. The copper scroll masterfully blends the solid ground of archaeology with the enduring allure of legend. It forces us to confront a captivating possibility. That somewhere beneath the modern landscape of the Middle East, a fabulous hoard from the ancient world might still lie undisturbed, waiting not for a map, but for the one person who can finally understand the map we already have. It is a puzzle where the instructions are clear, but the meaning behind them remains profoundly, and perhaps intentionally, locked away. The copper scroll's unfulfilled promise of hidden wealth stands in stark contrast to a treasure of a different kind, one left in plain sight for all to see but impossible to fully comprehend. High above the city of Cusco in Peru, the fortress of Sacsayhuamán presents an architectural statement of sheer, undeniable power. Its defining feature is a series of 3 zigzagging defensive walls, built from limestone blocks so colossal they seem to belong to the realm of myth. Some of these stones weigh well over 100 tons, equivalent to more than 24 full-grown elephants. Yet the true wonder is not their size alone, but their marriage to impossible precision. The Inca builders of the 15th century shaped these behemoths into complex polygonal forms, fitting them together in a 3-dimensional stone puzzle. The joints are so seamless that, even centuries later, you cannot slip a razor blade between them. This is masonry that defies belief, constructed without the wheel, without iron tools, and without mortar. How was such a feat possible with the technology of the time? The Inca had bronze tools which are effective for working stone, but would be considered soft compared to the hard granite and limestone they shaped. The prevailing theory involves a combination of extraordinary patience and ingenious technique. Stones were likely pounded into rough shape using harder hammerstones, then ground into their final, precise forms using sand, water, and abrasive action over years of labor. Transport is another monumental puzzle. The stones were quarried from sites kilometers away, and researchers suggest they were dragged on log rollers or sledges by vast teams of laborers, using a system of ropes and ramps that turned human coordination into a kind of living machine. But the genius of Sacsayhuamán goes beyond assembly. The jigsaw-like interlocking of the stones is not merely artistic, it is profoundly functional. Peru is a seismically active land, and these walls are engineered for earthquake resistance. During a tremor, the tightly fitted blocks shift and settle together, absorbing the energy without collapsing, a principle modern engineers call ashlar masonry. This reveals a deep, practical wisdom embedded in the stone. The The mystery that lingers, however, is not just about the physical how, it is about the knowledge behind it. The techniques were so specialized that they seem to have been closely guarded by master builders, a tradition that may have faded with the arrival of European contact and the disruption of Inca society. This loss of specific, hands-on knowledge leaves us with a profound gap. We can see the result, we can theorize the process, but the exact methods, the subtle tricks of measurement and shaping perfected over generations, are silent. The walls of Sacsayhuamán stand as a permanent question, challenging our modern assumption that advanced engineering requires advanced machinery. They testify to a different kind of advancement, one built on profound understanding of materials, relentless communal effort, and a technological intelligence so refined it appears to our eyes almost magical. This notion of lost technique, of a sophisticated understanding that vanished with its practitioners, leads us directly to another enigma, one found not in towering walls, but in the delicate crafting of a metal that should not exist. The seamless stonework of Sacsayhuamán speaks to a mastery of physical forces, but another artifact suggests an ancient culture may have harnessed a far more subtle power. In a museum in Baghdad rests a simple clay jar about the size of a man's fist. Inside it, archaeologists found a rolled copper sheet forming a cylinder, and within that, an iron rod. Sealed at the top with an asphalt plug, this unassuming collection of parts, dated to sometime between 250 years before the Common Era and 650 years after, has sparked one of archaeology's most electrifying debates. For when this jar is filled with an acidic liquid, something remarkable happens. A common substance like vinegar or grape juice acts as an electrolyte, allowing a chemical reaction between the copper and the iron. This reaction generates a small but measurable electric charge, a little over 1 volt. In essence, this object, known as the Baghdad Battery, functions as a primitive galvanic cell. The immediate question is as obvious as it is profound. Did its creators know what they had made? One compelling theory posits a practical, even ingenious application. The small voltage produced could have been used for electroplating, the process of coating one metal with a thin layer of another, like putting a gold veneer on a silver object. A craftsman could have connected several of these jars together to create a stronger current, dipping an item into a solution and using the battery to bond metals at a microscopic level. Another possibility is that it served a medical purpose. Historical texts from the Greek and Roman world describe the use of electric fish to numb pain, suggesting an awareness that a jolt could affect the body. Perhaps this device was a more controlled method of delivering a mild therapeutic shock, yet skepticism is equally strong. Critics point out that no wires, no electrodes, and no other associated devices have ever been found alongside these jars. If they were batteries, where is the rest of the circuit? The alternative explanation is that they were simply secure storage vessels for precious scrolls, with the iron rod acting as a core for the rolled papyrus or parchment, and the asphalt seal protecting the contents from moisture. This debate is about more than a single jar. It strikes at the heart of how we interpret innovation. If the Baghdad Battery was indeed a purposeful cell, it represents a flash of electrochemical understanding that appeared, was used locally, and then vanished from the collective knowledge of humanity for nearly 2,000 years, only to be reinvented by Alessandro Volta in the year 1800. This is the pattern of a lost thread, a technology that never wove itself into the broader tapestry. It forces us to consider that scientific discovery is not always a continuous, accumulating line. Sometimes it is a brief, isolated spark in the darkness, noticed by a few, then forgotten, leaving behind an artifact that looks like a pot but feels like a profound question. Was this the ancient world's first battery, or just a very well-sealed container? The object itself offers no definitive answer, only that quiet, persistent vault of possibility. If the Baghdad Battery represents a spark of lost technology, Our next puzzle suggests an entire continent may have been lost from our historical memory. In the year 1513, Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis compiled a world map that has since become one of the most contentious documents in the history of exploration. What survives today is only a fragment, a tantalizing piece of a larger work, but the detail it contains is staggering. The map accurately shows the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and even portions of the Caribbean with a level of precision that seems remarkable for its time. Yet it is the southernmost section of the map that ignites a firestorm of debate. Below the tip of South America, the chart depicts a landmass. Piri Reis himself wrote notes on the map, stating he had drawn it from many older source maps, including some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. The controversial interpretation is that this southern landmass, with its detailed bays and inlets, represents the coastline of Antarctica. This is puzzling on a fundamental level, as the frozen continent was not officially sighted by European explorers until the year 1820. Even more perplexing is the shape of this coastline on the Piri Reis map. Some researchers argue it resembles the subglacial topography of Antarctica, the actual land beneath the ice, which was only mapped in the 20th century using seismic and radar technology. How could a 16th century admiral know what lay under miles of ice? The scholarly consensus offers a more grounded, yet still fascinating, explanation. Piri Reis was an accomplished compiler, not necessarily an original explorer. His notes are clear that he synthesized information from a multitude of older charts, some captured from Spanish and Portuguese sailors, others from what he called ancient sources. It is highly probable that the southern land on his map is a composite, a cartographer's best guess based on sailors' tales of distant lands, perhaps even a distorted representation of the southern reaches of South America itself, like Tierra del Fuego, stretched and merged with legendary southern continents that had been speculated upon since the time of the ancient Greeks. The true mystery, therefore, shifts from the ice of Antarctica to the lost libraries of the ancient world. What were those source maps Piri Reis referenced? Could they have been copies of charts from great classical libraries like Alexandria, preserving geographical knowledge from Phoenician or even earlier maritime cultures that sailed further than we currently credit? The map does not necessarily prove ancient astronauts or hyper-advanced civilizations. Instead, it hints at a more plausible but equally revolutionary idea that the age of exploration was not a sudden beginning but a rediscovery. It suggests a long, fragmented history of human voyaging where knowledge was gained, recorded on perishable vellum or papyrus, and then lost in the fires of war, the decay of time, or the simple disintegration of materials. The Piri Reis map is a ghost image, a palimpsest of forgotten journeys. Its enduring power lies in that blank space on the edge of the known world, a space filled not with monsters, as many medieval maps were, but with startlingly accurate coastlines that ask us a simple, haunting question. How much of our planet's geography was once known and then simply forgotten? The silent, monumental questions of forgotten geography find a startling parallel deep underground. In 1992, in Zhejiang Province, China, a local farmer decided to pump water out of a small, waterlogged pond. As the water level dropped, he did not find a muddy bottom. He revealed the entrance to an immense hand-carved cavern. This chance discovery led to the uncovering of 24 such caves, now known as the Longyou Caves. Each one is a colossal, artificial grotto with soaring ceilings supported by massive, evenly spaced pillars of rock left in place by the builders. The scale is almost incomprehensible. Collectively, their creation required the removal of an estimated 1 million cubic meters of stone. That is a volume of rock equivalent to a small mountain, meticulously carved out by hand over 2,000 years ago. Yet for all this staggering effort, the historical record is utterly silent. Not a single scroll, not one local legend, no dynastic chronicle mentions their construction. This complete absence is the first layer of the mystery. How does a project of such monumental scale, requiring a vast, organized workforce over generations, simply disappear from a culture known for its meticulous record-keeping? The caves themselves offer clues, but they are enigmatic. The walls and ceilings are covered in a uniform pattern of parallel chisel marks, a kind of decorative, rhythmic texture that is found nowhere else in Chinese archaeology. This pattern was clearly intentional, a signature of the builder's technique and perhaps their aesthetic, but it gives no written answers. The architectural form is equally puzzling. The caves are not natural formations that were expanded. They are designed spaces with rooms, pillars, and pools carved with clear purpose. So what was that purpose? One theory suggests they were imperial tombs or sacred ceremonial spaces, carved out for rituals lost to time. Another proposes they were simply gigantic quarries, mined for a specific type of sandstone used in building projects. Yet if they were quarries, why the careful, decorative finishing of every single surface? Why create such a majestic, cathedral-like interior just to extract stone? And then there is the most practical of puzzles. What happened to all the rock that was removed? 1 million cubic meters of stone is an astronomical amount of material. It would form a mountain of its own, yet no trace of this debris has ever been found in the surrounding landscape. It did not just vanish, it was systematically taken away and disposed of, another logistical feat with no explanation. The Longyou Caves present a paradox of sheer physical presence and total historical absence. They are a testament to a will, a community, and a purpose powerful enough to move literal mountains, yet so fragile that its memory evaporated completely. They force us to confront a humbling reality, that even the grandest, most deliberate human endeavors are not guaranteed a place in the story we tell ourselves about the past. A civilization can etch its ambition into the very bones of the earth and still be forgotten, leaving behind only the echo of their tools in the silent, patterned stone. From the silent, carved caverns of China, we move to an open-air forest of stone on the coast of France. The Carnac Alignments present a landscape transformed not by subtraction, but by deliberate, staggering addition. Here in Brittany, over 3,000 granite megaliths stand in eerie, orderly rows, stretching across the countryside for miles. Erected by Neolithic communities beginning around 4,500 years before the Common Era, these stones are not haphazardly placed. They form parallel lines, sometimes a dozen rows deep, marching across the moors with a silent, military precision. The sheer scale of the endeavor is the first overwhelming fact. To quarry, transport, and erect just one of these multi-ton stones would be a significant communal task. To do it thousands of times over centuries speaks of a society with remarkable organization, shared belief, and a purpose so compelling it defined generations. Yet that purpose is precisely what has evaporated into the mists of prehistory. The stones themselves offer no inscriptions, no carvings to decipher. They are a question mark written in granite. One prominent theory looks to the sky. The alignments may have functioned as a colossal astronomical observatory. Certain rows could have been sight lines to mark the rising and setting of the sun or moon at solstices and equinoxes, turning the entire landscape into a calendar tied to the cycles of agriculture and ceremony. Another, more earthly hypothesis suggests the stones served as territorial markers, a permanent and undeniable statement of a clan's presence and control over the land, a message written in a language of pure monumentality. Some researchers propose a connection to the land itself, viewing the lines as a sacred map or a representation of spiritual pathways, perhaps meant to channel energies or honor deities of the earth. There is even a geological theory that the unique placement could have served as an early seismic detector, with the long rows acting as a kind of antenna to sense subtle tremors in the ground. What makes Carnac distinct from a site like Stonehenge is its fundamental architecture of procession. Stonehenge creates a circle, an enclosure for gathering within. Carnac creates avenues, lines meant to be walked along. This suggests a ritual experience based on movement, on journeying through the stones rather than congregating amongst them. One could imagine ceremonial walks at dawn, with the long shadows of the monoliths stretching like pathways to the horizon, physically tracing a connection between the community, their ancestors, and the cosmos. Walking among the Carnac stones today is to feel the weight of that lost intention. The wind whispers through the gorse, and the stones stand as silent witnesses. They do not tell us what the people believed, but they shout with absolute clarity that those people believed in something powerful enough to move mountains. They represent a collective will, a shared vision that could coordinate labor across centuries, all to create a pattern on the earth whose meaning we can only guess. This is the profound invitation of Carnac. It asks us to walk the same paths, to stand in the same spaces, and to ponder not just how they did it, but what inner world, what view of existence could possibly demand such an outward, enduring expression. Isolated in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, presents a paradox carved in stone. The iconic Moai, those towering, solemn-faced statues, are instantly recognizable, their gaze fixed eternally inland. Nearly 900 of these figures were created by the Rapa Nui people between the 13th and 16th centuries, with the largest standing over 30 feet tall and weighing as much as 82 tons. For generations, the central, captivating mystery has been a question of pure physics. How did a society without wheels, without large animals, and without metal tools move these colossal monoliths from the volcanic quarry where they were carved to ceremonial platforms called ahu, sometimes over 10 miles away across rugged terrain? The answer seems to defy logic, yet recent experiments suggest a beautifully simple and dynamic solution. The statues might have walked. This theory proposes that the Moai were not dragged horizontally on log rollers, but were instead rocked from side to side by teams using a complex system of ropes, inching them forward in a controlled, upright shuffle. When demonstrated on a smaller scale, this method makes the impossible seem almost graceful, a rhythmic dance of human coordination and stone. Yet scaling this up to the largest Moai introduces daunting logistical questions. How many people would it truly require? How were the ropes made from island trees strong enough? And what of the immense risk, a single misstep potentially shattering a generation's work? This debate over transportation is more than an engineering puzzle. It is a window into the societal soul of ancient Rapa Nui. To coordinate such an operation required not just manpower, but a highly organized, hierarchical society with a shared, unwavering purpose. That purpose is believed to be a profound form of ancestor worship. The Moai are not gods, but representations of revered lineage heads, their backs to the sea, so their watchful presence could bless and protect the living communities inland. The ahu platforms themselves are sacred altars, often the final resting place for community members, physically connecting the living with the legacy of those who came before. But the precise nature of the ceremonies conducted there, the chants, the offerings, the specific meanings behind the variations in the statues' designs, all have been lost to time, silenced by later cultural disruption. This loss deepens the island's ultimate tragedy, a story often told as a cautionary tale. The most common narrative suggests that the island's once lush palm forests were cleared to provide rollers and ropes for moving statues, leading to catastrophic soil erosion, crop failure, and a societal collapse marked by conflict. While recent research paints a more complex picture, incorporating the arrival of Europeans and introduced species, the Moai stand as permanent, haunting symbols. They represent the breathtaking heights of human devotion and communal achievement, and also pose an uncomfortable question about the balance between spiritual ambition and environmental reality. They are monuments to what a culture can build when united by a common vision, and silent witnesses to what can be lost when that vision's physical demands meet the hard limits of an isolated world. The immense Moai of Easter Island demonstrate the power of shared belief to reshape a landscape. But what if that impulse to build for the gods came long before we built for ourselves? In the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, a discovery so profound it shattered a cornerstone of human history began with a simple misidentification. For decades, locals called the place Göbekli Tepe or Potbelly Hill, dismissing the odd, protruding stones as nothing more than an ancient cemetery. It was not until the 1990s that German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt took a closer look. What he uncovered was not a graveyard but a temple complex of staggering antiquity, one that would force a complete rewrite of the story we tell about our own past. Dated to around 9,600 years before the Common Era, Göbekli Tepe is not just old. It is incomprehensibly ancient. It predates Stonehenge by a staggering 6,000 years. It was built a full 5 millennia before the Great Pyramids of Giza. To stand amidst its rings of massive, T-shaped limestone pillars is to stand in a world that, according to traditional archaeology, should not have existed. The pillars themselves are the heart of the mystery. Carved from solid bedrock and weighing up to 20 tons, they were erected in circular or oval enclosures. Many are engraved with an elaborate bestiary of ancient animals, intricate reliefs of foxes, boars, cranes, scorpions, and lions, frozen in motion on the stone. The craftsmanship is sophisticated, deliberate, and powerful. Yet the society that built Göbekli Tepe was not what anyone expected. This monumental complex was not the product of a settled, agricultural society with surplus food and a rigid hierarchy. The builders, as revealed by the archaeological evidence, were hunter-gatherers, nomadic people who lived by following herds and foraging wild plants. This single fact turns a fundamental historical narrative on its head. For over a century, the prevailing theory of the Neolithic revolution held a logical sequence. Humans first discovered agriculture, which created a stable food surplus. That surplus allowed people to settle in permanent villages. Settlement led to specialization, social stratification, and complex organization. And only then, with this new societal complexity, could humanity afford the labor and vision to construct monumental architecture for ritual or religion. Göbekli Tepe explodes that sequence. Here, the monumental architecture came first. The implications are seismic. It suggests that the drive to create a shared sacred space to gather for ritual purposes may have been the catalyst for civilization itself, not its consequence. Why would scattered bands of hunter-gatherers coordinate across a region, investing immense effort over generations to build something with no apparent practical domestic use? The answer seems to lie in a unifying belief system so strong it compelled cooperation on an unprecedented scale. Göbekli Tepe may have been a regional cult center, a place where different groups gathered at specific times of the year for ceremonies that reinforced social bonds, exchanged knowledge, and performed rituals central to their worldview. The animal symbols, far from mere decoration, likely held deep mythic significance, perhaps telling stories of creation or representing powerful spiritual forces. After the ceremonies, the enclosures appear to have been intentionally buried, filled with thousands of tons of soil and stone, perhaps as part of a ritual cycle of death and renewal. This act of burial is what preserved the site so perfectly for 12,000 years. Today, the purpose of each enclosure and the precise meaning of the symbols remain locked in speculation. The site contains no evidence of permanent settlement, no houses or granaries, only the stark, awe-inspiring ritual architecture. This makes Göbekli Tepe not just a collection of old stones, but a foundational mystery about the very origins of what makes us human. It asks us which came first, the temple or the town. Was it the need to worship together that taught us how to live together? The pillars stand as silent, monumental questions, challenging the very timeline of progress and suggesting that the first blueprint for civilization may not have been drawn for a farm or a fortress, but for a place to wonder together at the mysteries of the world. Beneath the rolling fields and quiet villages of modern Europe lies a hidden continent of stone, stretching from the Scottish Highlands to the heart of Turkey. A vast, clandestine network of thousands of narrow tunnels, known to archaeologists as Erdstalls, was carved from the earth over 5,000 years ago. These are not the spacious caverns of natural processes. They are cramped, human-made passages, often so tight that an adult must crawl on hands and knees to navigate them. Their very dimensions present the first clue to their mystery. They are too small for living in, too awkward for storing food or supplies, and too extensive to be simple root cellars. So why would Neolithic communities with simple stone and antler tools invest generations of backbreaking labor to create something with no obvious practical purpose? One theory envisions them as escape routes or defensive shelters, a subterranean refuge from raiding parties or predatory animals. Yet their construction is often uniform and precise, with smooth walls and carefully shaped arches, suggesting a purpose beyond mere panic or utility. Another, more compelling idea delves into the symbolic world of our ancestors. For cultures deeply connected to the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, the earth itself was a powerful spiritual entity. These tunnels may have represented ritual pathways to an underworld, a place of ancestors or deities. Crawling through the narrow, pitch-black passage could have been a profound ceremonial act, a symbolic journey of transformation, where one entered the darkness and emerged reborn back into the light. The most fascinating aspect is their geographic spread. Similar tunnel designs appear across thousands of miles in regions with vastly different surface cultures. This cannot be coincidence. It points to a shared idea, a belief or practice that traveled with people, or sprang up independently from a common human impulse to connect with the world beneath. With no written records and no surviving oral tradition from those distant times, the tunnels are a silent testament. They force us to reconsider what we label as practical. To the modern mind, a project requires clear utility, but these Stone Age builders remind us that the most powerful human motivations are often symbolic. The immense labor invested in these hidden labyrinths was not for shelter or storage, but likely for the soul. They reveal a prehistoric Europe not just of scattered settlements, but of a rich, interconnected spiritual landscape, a world where the most important journeys might have been taken not across the horizon, but directly down into the embracing, mysterious darkness of the earth. The hidden tunnels of prehistoric Europe speak of a world where communities invested in the unseen, a theme echoed by a civilization that mastered the visible world only to vanish from it entirely. In the fertile plains of the Indus River Valley, one of humanity's first experiments in urban living reached a breathtaking scale. Around 4,500 years ago, cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa thrived. These were not chaotic clusters of dwellings. They were meticulously planned metropolises, built on a grid system of wide, straight streets, complete with sophisticated public works that would not be rivaled for millennia. Homes featured indoor bathrooms, and a city-wide drainage system of baked brick channels carried waste away from populated areas. This was a society of remarkable order and apparent social harmony, with no obvious signs of palaces for mighty kings or vast temples dedicated to singular gods. Their advancement is clear in every excavated brick, yet by around 3,900 years ago, this vibrant civilization entered a period of decline. The great cities were gradually abandoned, their populations dispersing into smaller villages. The precise reason for this unraveling remains one of history's most profound open questions. Did a shifting climate, a prolonged drought, slowly choke the agricultural heartland that fed these cities? Geological evidence suggests the mighty Indus River may have changed its course, disrupting the lifeline of trade and fresh water. Some earlier theories pointed to the arrival of outside groups, but archaeological finds show little evidence of widespread conflict or sudden destruction. The decline appears to have been a slow fading, a gradual retreat from complexity. This physical mystery is compounded by a silent one. The Indus Valley people left behind a written language found on thousands of small stone seals and pottery fragments. The script is elegant, featuring stylized animals and human-like figures alongside a series of distinct geometric symbols. But despite over a century of effort by linguists and code breakers, the script has never been deciphered. We cannot read a single word they wrote. This creates a haunting duality. We can walk their streets, admire their plumbing, and handle their artifacts, but we cannot hear their voices. We do not know what they called their cities, how they governed themselves, what stories they told, or what gods they worshipped. Their entire inner world, their history, their poetry, and their laws is locked behind a symbolic wall. The story of the Indus Valley civilization serves as a humbling counterpoint to narratives of inevitable progress. It demonstrates that sophistication is no guarantee of permanence. A society can achieve stunning heights of planning, engineering, and communal living, and still its foundations can quietly erode. Its people can choose to walk away, and its memory can become so silent that even its words become a riddle. Their legacy is a powerful reminder that the rise and fall of civilizations is often a slow, complex dance with the environment, with technology, and with the collective will to sustain a way of life, a dance whose final steps we are still trying to reconstruct from the silent stones and the beautiful, unreadable script they left behind. The silent, unreadable script of the Indus Valley leaves us longing to understand ancient minds, but another artifact seems to offer a glimpse we can almost touch. Within the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt, a stone relief carved over 2,000 years ago presents an image that feels startlingly familiar to the modern eye. It shows a large, elongated object shaped like a bulb or a vase. Inside it, a snake extends along its length, held at one end by a figure of a god. This central form is connected by a cable-like line to a box, upon which sits a baboon deity. To a viewer living in the age of electricity, the interpretation leaps out. It looks like a giant light bulb with the snake as its glowing filament, the cable as its power cord, and the box as its battery or generator. This is the heart of the Dendera light puzzle, a perfect example of how our contemporary worldview can reshape the past. The mainstream Egyptological explanation is rooted in mythology, not technology. Scholars identify the scene as a symbolic representation of creation. The bulb-shaped object is not a lamp, but the womb of the sky goddess Nut, depicted as a lotus flower. The snake is the god Harsomptus, emerging from the lotus to bring life and light into the world, a classic Egyptian metaphor for dawn and divine birth. The connecting cable is a lotus stem, and the baboon is a form of the god Thoth, overseeing the cosmic process. This interpretation fits seamlessly within the rich, symbolic language of Egyptian temple art, where every element is part of a complex religious narrative. Yet, the alternative view persists with a compelling question. Could this be a case of symbolic art accidentally mirroring a real, lost technology? The theory suggests the ancient Egyptians might have possessed a form of advanced illumination, perhaps using some electrochemical principle or even primitive arc lighting, knowledge of which was later lost and only survived encoded in temple carvings. This idea, while captivating, faces a significant evidential void. No physical remains of generators, insulated wires, or bulbs have ever been found in any Egyptian excavation. The civilization's own extensive records speak of torches, oil lamps, and reflective mirrors for lighting tombs, never of electrical devices. The true weight of this puzzle, therefore, lies less in ancient workshops and more in our own minds. It highlights a fascinating tension in how we interpret history. We are creatures of our time, and we naturally view the past through the lens of our own greatest inventions. When we see a shape that resembles a light bulb, our brains, wired by a world of electricity, immediately make that connection. We project our technological framework onto a canvas meant for mythology. This does not diminish the sophistication of the ancient Egyptians, but rather asks us to appreciate a different kind of sophistication. Their genius was in expressing profound cosmic ideas through a consistent, beautiful symbolic language, a language we are still learning to read without inserting our own modern vocabulary. The Dendera relief challenges us to sit with that ambiguity. It asks us to hold two possibilities in mind, not as competing truths, but as reflections of different ways of knowing. One is the literal question of lost science, a question that so far returns no physical proof. The other is the metaphorical power of human creativity, a proven force that built the temple itself. The stone does not show us a working circuit, but it brilliantly illuminates the enduring human desire to find our own reflection, even in the sacred art of a world that saw the universe in a very different light. The human imagination is a powerful tool, often seeing patterns and stories where science sees only natural processes. This tension between the possible and the probable defines our 16th puzzle, an enigma born not from ancient soil but from the cold, dark waters of the modern world. In the year 2011, a team of Swedish treasure hunters were scanning the floor of the Baltic Sea with side-scan sonar, searching for historic shipwrecks. What their instruments revealed, however, was no sunken galleon. Lying 60 meters below the surface was a massive, almost perfectly circular object roughly 60 meters in diameter. The sonar image showed a distinct disc-like shape with straight edges and what appeared to be a tail of disturbed sediment stretching behind it for hundreds of meters. To many who saw the first grainy images, the resemblance was uncanny. It looked for all the world like a classic depiction of a crashed flying saucer resting on the ocean floor. The discovery, quickly dubbed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, ignited a firestorm of speculation across the internet and in popular media. The initial team reported strange electronic malfunctions when they passed directly over the object, adding a layer of modern myth to the find. Could this be evidence of something not of this world, a relic resting in the silent depths? Geologists and marine scientists examining the data offer a far more terrestrial explanation. They suggest the object is most likely a unique glacial formation. During the last ice age, immense glaciers scoured the bedrock of this region. It is possible that a particularly hard outcrop of rock resisted the ice flow, becoming smoothed and shaped into this unusual form over millennia. The straight lines could be fractures in the bedrock, and the trailing marks could simply be the natural gouges left by the retreating glacier. This is a well-documented natural process, though one that rarely produces such a symmetrical result. The site itself has proven extraordinarily difficult and costly to explore in detail. Its depth and remote location make manned expeditions a significant undertaking, and the murky, cold waters limit visibility for cameras. Subsequent scans have provided more data but no definitive answers. Some images seem to show stair-like structures or surfaces at right angles, features that feel unnaturally geometric. Others argue these are tricks of sonar resolution and shadow. This standoff between interpretation and evidence is what keeps the mystery alive. The Baltic Sea Anomaly is a perfect capsule of how discovery works in the 21st century. Advanced technology allows us to map our planet with incredible detail, revealing shapes and forms we have never seen before. Yet that same technology does not automatically provide context. A sonar return is just data, a collection of echoes. The human mind must then step in to interpret it, and our minds are filled with stories, myths, and a deep curiosity about the unknown. This object sits at the crossroads of geology and imagination. It represents the ongoing, thrilling process of exploration, where every new scan of a mountain range, ocean trench, or planetary surface can reveal something that does not fit an easy category. These discoveries force a dialogue between cautious science and boundless wonder. They remind us that our world, even in its most studied corners, can still produce forms that make us pause, look closer, and ask not just what something is, but what it could be. The anomaly may ultimately be a remarkable stone shaped by ancient ice, but its true power lies in its ability to make us question, to look at a familiar planet and remember that it is still capable of producing genuine surprises. A single, terrifying portrait can eclipse an entire library of text. In a Benedictine monastery in Bohemia during the early 13th century, a monk undertook a task of almost unimaginable dedication. The result is the Codex Gigas, or the Giant Book, a manuscript so massive it is said to have required the skins of 160 donkeys to create its vellum pages. Weighing nearly 165 pounds, it is the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world. Its contents are, in many ways, conventional for the era, a compilation of the Latin Vulgate Bible, historical works, and medical texts. But one page transforms this scholarly tome into an enduring legend. There, in stark, vivid color, is a full-page illustration of the devil. He is depicted alone in a barren landscape, a clawed, monstrous figure with horns, a forked tongue, and an expression of pure malevolence. This single image earned the book its popular name, the Devil's Bible, and spawned a story that has echoed for centuries. The legend claims a monk, condemned to be walled up alive for breaking his vows, promised to create a book containing all human knowledge in a single night to atone for his sin. As midnight approached and the task proved impossible, he prayed not to God but to the fallen angel Lucifer, who finished the manuscript in exchange for the monk's soul. The chilling portrait of the devil was then included as a tribute to its true author. This folklore is gripping, but the physical evidence tells a more human, though no less astonishing, story. Paleographic analysis reveals the entire manuscript was indeed written by one hand. The uniformity of the script across its hundreds of pages is absolute, showing no signs of aging, illness, or changing tools that would normally appear in a project spanning decades. This suggests an intense, concentrated period of work, perhaps completed in under 30 years by a scribe of extraordinary discipline and focus. So why the devil? The mystery is not the image's existence, for medieval manuscripts often included depictions of evil as a contrast to the divine. The puzzle is its prominence and isolation. One theory views it as a profound act of penance. The scribe, perhaps grappling with his own spiritual failings or a deep sense of guilt, might have created the entire work as an act of devotion, with the devil's portrait serving as a permanent, stark warning against temptation, a mirror held up to the darkness he sought to overcome. Another interpretation sees it as a theological tool, placed opposite a magnificent illustration of the heavenly city. The two pages would have presented a clear, visual choice between salvation and damnation for any monk who turned the pages. The book itself becomes a silent sermon. We may also consider the mental landscape of the creator. The psychological toll of such solitary, repetitive labor in the dim light of a scriptorium is difficult to fathom. The intense focus required could have led to a state of profound introspection or visionary experience, where the struggle between good and evil became a tangible presence poured onto the page. The Codex Gigas ultimately transcends its own legend. It is a monument to the extremes of human endeavor, a fusion of profound faith and haunting fear. The devil on the page is not proof of a pact, but a window into the medieval mind, a culture that believed spiritual warfare was as real as the parchment they wrote upon. The book's true power lies in its duality, a colossal work of sacred text forever anchored by one unforgettable, unsettling image, reminding us that the stories we tell about artifacts are often attempts to understand the immense and sometimes shadowy forces that drove their creators. Scattered across the remote, misty highlands of northern Laos, a silent army of stone stands guard over a forgotten past. This is the Plain of Jars, a landscape dotted not with trees or buildings, but with thousands of immense carved stone jars. Some stand as tall as a person, while others loom even larger, with the heaviest weighing several tons. They are hewn from solid sandstone and granite, their shapes ranging from cylindrical to bulbous, many with a distinct lip around the top as if designed to hold a lid. Dating from the Iron Age, roughly from 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after, these artifacts are ancient, yet the civilization that crafted them left no written records and no grand cities to provide context. They are alone on the landscape, a riddle in rock. The most widely accepted theory, based on limited excavations and the discovery of human remains and funeral goods in and around some jars, is that they were part of an elaborate burial practice. In this interpretation, the jars might have served as receptacles for individuals during a ceremonial process, perhaps holding the physical form for a period of time before final resting rites, or storing cherished possessions for the journey into whatever lay beyond. Yet, this explanation, while logical, remains frustratingly incomplete. No comprehensive, large-scale archaeological study has been able to fully confirm the pattern, leaving open other possibilities. Could the jars have been used for storage of food or water for large seasonal gatherings? Might they have been part of a fermentation process for a ceremonial drink? The sheer variety in size and shape suggests their use may not have been uniform, adding another layer of complexity. The logistical mystery is as profound as the cultural one. These jars are not clustered in a single, convenient quarry. They are spread across hundreds of separate sites in the rugged, mountainous terrain of Xinjiang province. How did the Iron Age people transport these multi-ton stone vessels, often over significant distances and difficult slopes, without the wheel or draft animals? The effort implies a highly motivated, organized society, one for whom the placement of these jars in specific, scattered locations was of paramount importance. Perhaps the sites were chosen for their spiritual significance, each plateau or hillside holding a specific meaning in a cosmology we can no longer perceive. The very remoteness that has preserved the Plain of Jars also deepens its mystery. For decades, access for researchers was severely limited due to the tragic legacy of more recent regional conflicts, leaving vast areas unexplored and countless questions unanswered. This enigma is a powerful reminder that the map of human history is still full of blank spaces, not for lack of curiosity, but because the Earth itself can keep its secrets in places that are difficult to reach. The jars stand as silent, stoic witnesses. They do not tell us about kings or conquests, but they speak volumes about a community's relationship with memory, with ceremony, and with the land itself. They represent a collective investment in permanence, a desire to mark the landscape with something enduring that said, "We were here and this place mattered." What that meaning was exactly continues to echo only in the hollow silence of the stone. Granite can carry messages meant for the ages, but what happens when those messages arrive in our own time? In 1980, a striking monument appeared in a field in rural Georgia in the United States. Known as the Georgia Guidestones, it consisted of 4 massive granite slabs, each standing over 16 feet tall, arranged around a central pillar and capped with a heavy stone tablet. Its physical presence was imposing, but its true mystery was etched into the stone. On the slabs, 10 guidelines for humanity were inscribed in 8 different modern languages, from English and Spanish to Swahili and Hindi. A shorter message was also carved across the top in 4 ancient scripts: Babylonian cuneiform, Classical Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. The guidelines themselves ranged from the pragmatic, like maintaining humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, to the philosophical, such as guiding reproduction wisely and avoiding petty laws and useless officials. The monument was commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, who claimed it represented a small group of loyal Americans. He paid for its construction and then vanished, leaving no verifiable identity. This deliberate anonymity transformed the Guidestones from a simple monument into a contemporary archaeological puzzle. Here was a modern artifact, its creation fully documented in county records, yet its origin and true purpose were immediately obscured. The debate over intent was fierce and immediate. Some saw the stones as a benevolent, if eccentric, blueprint for rebuilding society after a potential future collapse, a kind of modern-day Rosetta Stone for survival and ethical governance. Others interpreted them as a cryptic manifesto for a controversial worldview, with a call for a much smaller global population sparking particular concern and speculation about the sponsor's motives. Still others argued it was an elaborate conceptual art project designed to provoke exactly this kind of public discourse and myth-making. The mystery was not about worn inscriptions or lost languages, but about a very modern act of hiding in plain sight. Then, in 2022, the physical puzzle was violently altered when the monument was heavily damaged in an explosion and later partially demolished, leaving only one slab standing. This act of destruction did not solve the riddle, it only added another layer. The Guidestones demonstrate with startling clarity that the human impulse to create enduring, enigmatic monuments did not end with the pharaohs or the mound builders. It persists. This was a mystery manufactured within living memory, using 20th century machinery and funded by a bank check, yet it achieved the same legendary status as far older sites. It proves that archaeological puzzles are not defined by their age, but by their resistance to simple explanation. They arise whenever a deliberate act of creation is severed from its creator's clear identity and intent, leaving the object itself to bear the weight of endless interpretation. The stones asked modern society profound questions about population, ecology, and governance, but their most enduring question was about ourselves. Why do we, in an age of total information, still choose to build secrets into stone? Plato's story of Atlantis is archaeology's greatest ghost story. Written in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 360 years before the Common Era, he described a powerful, advanced island nation that existed 9,000 years before his own time, a society of great engineers and navigators that ultimately angered the gods and sank beneath the waves in a single day and night. For centuries, this account was read as pure philosophical allegory, a cautionary tale about the hubris of nations, created by Plato to illustrate his ideas about an ideal state and its moral decay. Yet the vividness of the description, the specificity of its timeline, and the sheer scale of the catastrophe have proven irresistible. They have transformed Atlantis from a philosopher's metaphor into history's most persistent cold case, launching a quest that stretches across millennia and continents. The central puzzle is not merely finding a sunken city, but untangling a profound knot. Where does philosophical invention end and folk memory begin? Could a story so detailed be entirely fabricated, or does it preserve a distant echo of a real, catastrophic event that reshaped the ancient world? This question has driven researchers to propose countless locations, each matching some aspect of Plato's clues. The most compelling candidate is the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea. Around the year 1600 before the Common Era, a volcanic eruption of staggering force, one of the largest in human history, obliterated the sophisticated Minoan settlement of Akrotiri and likely triggered tsunamis that devastated coastal communities across the region. The geological and archaeological evidence is concrete, a civilization dramatically interrupted by natural disaster. While the date is far later than Plato's 9,000 years, the parallels are striking, a highly advanced culture brought low by the sea. Could tales of this event have been passed down, exaggerated and mythologized over centuries, eventually reaching Plato as a story of a lost continent? Other theories look further afield. Some point to the Richat structure in Mauritania, known as the Eye of the Sahara, a massive, circular geological formation visible from space that, from the ground, resembles the concentric rings of water and land that Plato described. Others have suggested locations as diverse as the Azores, Antarctica, or even off the coast of Cuba. Each proposal highlights a different facet of the story, from geographic matching to evidence of ancient flooding. The enduring power of the Atlantis myth, however, lies less in any specific site and more in what it reveals about us. It demonstrates how a single, powerful narrative can become an engine for exploration, pushing the boundaries of archaeology, geology, and oceanography. The search itself, often fueled by a deep, almost romantic desire to prove a legend true, has led to genuine discoveries about ancient climate change, seismic activity, and lost cultures that really did vanish beneath the waves or sands. Atlantis, whether allegory or obscured memory, serves as a permanent symbol. It represents the human fascination with catastrophe and resilience, with the idea that grand civilizations can rise, fall, and be forgotten, leaving only the faintest whisper in a philosopher's text. It blends the thrill of myth with the rigor of science, reminding us that sometimes the most valuable treasure is not a sunken city of gold, but the relentless curiosity that drives us to keep looking, to keep questioning the line between the stories we tell and the history we have yet to uncover. Across these 20 silent enigmas, a deeper story begins to take shape. It is not a collection of random oddities, but a pattern of echoes, each mystery resonating with themes found in others. When we step back, we see these puzzles are not isolated. They form constellations in the dark sky of our past, pointing to recurring truths about how knowledge rises, flourishes, and sometimes vanishes. One of the most powerful patterns is the appearance of sophisticated understanding in what seem like isolated flashes. The Antikythera Mechanism with its precise gearwork, the earthquake-resistant walls of Sacsayhuamán, the possible electrochemical principle of the Baghdad Battery, these are not merely advanced for their time. They feel out of time. They suggest that profound technical insight can emerge in a specific place, within a specific community of thinkers or craftsmen, and then fail to spread. This knowledge becomes a pocket of brilliance, a local peak on the landscape of innovation that is not connected to the wider range. It is cultivated, used, and then, when that society shifts or fades, the peak erodes, leaving only a single, baffling artifact as proof it was ever there. This pattern challenges the comforting idea of linear, accumulating progress. It shows us that discovery can be fragile, that a technique or an understanding can be invented, perfected, and then forgotten, waiting centuries to be reinvented again. A second, more haunting pattern is the silence that follows grandeur. The Indus Valley cities with their unreadable script, the Longyou Caves with their complete absence from history, the Plain of Jars standing alone without context, these speak to the immense fragility of cultural memory. A civilization can build on a monumental scale, can organize thousands of people, can create a unique written language, and yet its inner world, its stories, its laws, and its name can evaporate completely. The stones remain, but the voice is gone. This reveals a sobering truth about history. What survives is often a matter of extraordinary luck, of climate, of materials that endure, and of later cultures that choose to preserve rather than obliterate. For every Göbekli Tepe that is found, how many more have been lost forever beneath forests, deserts, or modern cities? The record we have is not the full story. It is only the fragments that the centuries have chosen not to grind into dust. Furthermore, these puzzles often cluster at pivotal moments, at the peak of a civilization's confidence or at the precipice of its decline. The Nazca Lines were created during the height of that culture's expression. The Moai of Easter Island represent both the apex of communal effort and a symbol of its potential cost. The copper scroll was likely inscribed as a society faced imminent catastrophe. These enigmas become markers at the crossroads, monuments built at times of great energy or great anxiety, capturing a society's vision of the cosmos, its relationship with its ancestors, or its desperate attempts to preserve its legacy. They are artifacts of transition, moments when a culture is expressing its identity most powerfully, often just before that identity undergoes a profound change. Looking at these patterns together transforms our view. We stop seeing a list of curiosities and start seeing a map of human experience with vast, uncharted territories. These puzzles are the signposts at the borders of that map. They point to the specialized knowledge that flickered and died, to the grand societies that spoke in languages we can no longer hear, and to the profound transitions that reshaped our world in ways we are still piecing together. They remind us that the human story is not a single, smooth narrative written in stone. It is a patchwork, a tapestry woven with threads of dazzling brilliance, profound mystery, and inevitable loss. Each unsolved puzzle is a loose thread, an invitation to pull gently, to see what larger pattern in the fabric of time might slowly begin to reveal itself. From the geared wonders of ancient Greece to the silent stone giants of remote islands, these 20 unsolved puzzles stand as monuments to human curiosity and the limits of our knowledge. They are not relics of a forgotten past, but active conversations with it. Each one, from the Voynich Manuscript's beautiful silence to the Baltic Sea's ambiguous shape, teaches us a profound humility. For every definitive answer that archaeology provides, a deeper, more nuanced question often emerges from the soil alongside it. This is not a shortcoming of science, but its very essence. These enigmas are the driving force. They are the compelling unknown that pushes researchers to develop new technologies, to re-examine old assumptions, and to think with more creativity about the tapestry of our shared human story. They remind us that history is not a closed book, but a living dialogue. When we stand before the impossible masonry of Sacsayhuamán or ponder the purpose of Göbekli Tepe's towering pillars, we are grappling with the same sense of wonder and mystery that may have baffled even the descendants of those who built them. This connection across millennia is perhaps the greatest gift of these puzzles. They collapse time, linking our modern urge to understand with the ancient urge to create, to worship, and to leave a mark. Let these enduring questions inspire you to look at the world with both wonder and critical thought. Look at a landscape and ask what might lie beneath it. Look at an old map and consider the journeys it may encode. The story of humanity is still being written with every shovel of earth and every scan of a sonar screen. What other secrets lie buried, waiting patiently for their moment of discovery, for the one curious mind that will finally see the pattern in the puzzle? We would love to hear which of these mysteries resonates most with you. Share your favorite enigma in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey to the edges of the known, subscribe for more explorations into history's greatest unknowns. And above all, never stop questioning the extraordinary, unfinished story of us.